So, hello.
Hello.
Felipe and Ayano. You are the first guest on my show that I haven't actually met before. So that's quite an innovation we have here. But I'm very excited to get to know you a little better, and I hope some of the people in my audience will do the same. So I actually contacted you. So maybe a little introduction would be good here. I actually contacted you because you have been doing a lot of great work in the tango lyrics and translation group with your project, which is called Tango Poetry Project. And I'm also going to ask you some things about who you are and about your tango life and you as teachers. But let's just first discuss this project of yours. Maybe just one disclaimer. I think, correct me if I'm right, the project has been finished by now, but people can watch all the episodes, or not finished, but please correct me if you...
It's kind of like a work in progress because there's so many songs still to be translated, but it was a project that started with the pandemic, and maybe Ayano can explain a little bit more what the motivation was.
Weekly video has finished, but we're trying to figure out what we will morph into.
Okay. Okay, well, maybe we can hear a bit more about that later, but the one thing that's important to note is that I think all your videos are available online, and I will link your website under my video so that people can get familiar with this project, and it's very interesting. So I have said enough. I think you should tell them some more about it yourself. So I'd like to invite you to do so.
So Tango Poetry Project started last March,
a year before.
Yeah, last year, 2020, the time, because we thought, okay, things are looking bad. So we just shut down all of our local tango activities. We canceled all of our tours that we were going to go to Europe and Asia for tango cruise. We just canceled everything. And so we're here, and it's like, okay, tango's going to be on pause for a few months, right? What we were thinking. So I said, this Tango Poetry Project that I was doing already before, I DJ'd all night with planned, and I displayed the translation of the lyrics and Spanish original lyrics while people are dancing in a milonga.
Oh, cool.
And and so that was really cool, but it's kind of distracting. It's kind of difficult to do that in presence because you're also dancing, so you don't want to be looking at the screen. So some people who prefer to be sitting and reading, and that was kind of cool, but that was not really the optimal space. And then pandemic happened and we couldn't dance, so people are stuck in front of computer actually, but still wanting to dance, still wanting to connect to people. And so I thought, okay, this is perfect. So that's why I started this. And I thought, I hope I can cover all Big Four orchestra, because there's so many great songs. So I started with, I think, Tanturi Castillo. The Tango Poetry Project I had two programs running at that time. One was I choose 10 songs from one duo, what we call orchestra and singer duo. So first one was Ricardo Tanturi and Alberto Castillo duo. And I will pick most iconic song of their 10 songs, 10 recordings. And some were already translated by other people. Some songs that were not translated, then we would translate. And then I show in screen Spanish lyrics with the English translation right behind, so people can follow through while they're singing, while the singer is singing. Of course, you can sing too. Some people sing, I sing,
Tango karaoke.
Tango karaoke, So we were doing that. And then the next day, that was on Sunday. That's why I call it Bailongo de los Domingos. And then on Monday, where Mondays where we normally have our regular local classes, but since we couldn't do it, so instead I did a lecture sort of. No, I researched on one of the songs from that previous night, and I introduced the orchestra, I introduced the singer who wrote the song, the story behind the song. No, it's very interesting. Like the first one I think was Así se baila el tango. It's about tango, dancing tango. And there are many stories that come up, and I learned so much. This is never ending. I already covered, I would say, like, I don't know how many songs I covered.
More than 200 songs, for sure.
But, in the episodes, maybe 50 songs, and there's so many more stories to tell. That's why I said the weekly program ended since dancing has come back locally, but I have more stories to tell. There's so many stories to be told. So I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe we can do that in like a festival setting, or who knows, no?
Yeah, we'll find another outlet to keep the project slowly.
But anyhow, the idea originally was that because I'm Japanese, he's Spanish, I'm not a Spanish native speaker. I learned because of and him. But it's not like I go to a milonga and I know the lyrics kind of. No, I've read it, but it's not like I'm dancing and all the stories coming through my ears to my heart when I'm dancing. I don't know that much. But we go to Buenos Aires every year. And then in one time, this milonguero de Nemasi, he told me, like, because I was worried about dancing. It's like I wanted to get better. And I was like really frustrated. Like, what can I do? And he said, just like listen to the song, like listen to the story and put your heart in it. And then you're already a milonguera. Like you don't have to worry about anything. I'm like, what?
When was it?
This was several years ago.
Okay.
Years ago, because he passed away, a few years ago. And of course, it was before that. And then, so since then, like I'm like putting more intention on understanding the lyrics. And actually, that song was Tanturi's tango, both the tango, when he told me that. And I clearly remember that. And obviously, we were dancing in Canning. And then, like, my experience of dancing was completely different. Because I think as a foreigner, we tend to focus more on the music and the rhythms, which is really rich in tango, and I love, and I still appreciate it. But the other part, the story part, singing part, I think it's harder to get into. And I thought, like, why is it so hard? Well, because we don't speak the language. Okay, fine. But there are translations. Some people have done a great job translating in the past, which I also refer in my project, like Derek Del Pilar, Michael Krugman, Alberto Paz. They have like a lot of translation already. But then tango is rich. There are so many more that are not translated. Songs that we dance to all the time, And like, why is it like El Brindel Calle Ayacucho, for example? How many times do we dance that? There is no translation. Why is there no translation? So that's why we started doing it. And now it's done. Then anybody who speaks English can just watch and connect and then can understand and have, like the experience that this milonguero was telling me. So that's the motivation. To make the story accessible to all the people.
Yeah, it's like you bring the culture a bit closer.
Yeah.
And maybe this, like Felipe, you're a native Spanish speaker from Spain.
Yes.
Did you yourself perceive some kind of cultural distance to this tango as well, or was it a bit easier to?
No, I mean, I understand the lyrics, obviously, from the beginning. I know what the tangos talk about. And as Ayano was pointing out, that was one of the main motivations, because we realized that many people don't really know what they're dancing to. I mean, it's great to connect with the music and play with the rhythms and the musical structures, but tangos in general are a story. They tell a story, and a lot of people completely ignore that. And as you were mentioning, it also ties to cultural aspects of the history of how tango came to be, and the history of Argentina and that culture. So we thought, as teachers, we thought that as important as it is to learn the movements, to learn about the music, to learn about the orchestras, we thought that there was a side missing in general, in tango teaching in general, which is talking about the lyrics, talking about the poets, the stories, the themes, the characters that are portrayed in these stories. And the pandemic just gave us the perfect opportunity, because, you know, everybody was at home, everybody was looking for things to do. And for Ayano particularly, and for me helping her, was a great project to share with people, what are the themes of tango, what is this whole genre about. So it was a good motivation.
I was really lucky because, pandemic started all of a sudden, right? In a way, we got stuck in the house all of a sudden. But Felipe already had like collection of like so many books of history of tango, about the orchestra, about the poet, like so many books, all in Spanish, obviously, which is a little bit of a pain for me to read through. But since we were stuck, so I was reading through all of the material, to investigate, and which was great.
But that's also how you learn, right?
Hmm?
That's also how you learn, like also in the sense of Spanish.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
So is it, sorry, no, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that some of the songs are a little bit of a challenge because of the lunfardo, the slang that sometimes is in tango lyrics, and it's even a challenge for me because it's not really Spanish, right? It's a special lingo. But, fortunately, there's actually also dictionaries about lunfardo into Spanish. So it was sometimes very interesting to try to decipher some of the songs, some of the lyrics, and it was almost like a game sometimes, like getting into a song and getting to find out what it's about, what are all these words, and it turned to be actually very entertaining too.
Yes, I forgot the previous question actually.
Oh, sorry.
I'd like to follow up on what you said, but yeah, maybe for Ayano, this was even a more personal project because you had to invest more into getting to understand. Like, it's for you, it seems to be a very big personal motivation to get from like foreigner understands little Spanish to actually being able to hear the lyrics while you dance, and I can relate to that because I've done the same. But it seems like I like that when people have this personal motivation that they want other people, like for you too, like both of you, this applies. Like as teachers, you want people to understand more of this part of the culture. Like it's not just music. And yeah, I have the same feeling. It's I think we're part of a small group of people who really like understands what that culture is about, and we want more people to appreciate it. So it's a great thing, and I'm really sure that there are people who haven't heard of your project yet who would be very delighted to see also. Like I watched a few things, and I saw that you put in a lot of work in making it like very interactive. Like, so it's you see all these pictures, and yeah, it's a lot of great work. And
that was actually
done that before. I don't think anyone has done that before.
That was another very good part for Ayano particularly, which was researching all these old pictures, that could bring life to the stories, right? Like, pictures about the immigration, the way of life in Argentina back in those days, about the compadritos, about so many aspects of things that are mentioned in the lyrics. And there is a great archive of historical pictures online that Ayano was digging into, and lots of pictures also on books. So it was interesting to also find out that kind of materials, old movies, for example, from the 1930s, we watched so many old movies about tango, from the 1930s, 1940s, which are fiction, but sometimes, orchestras are there or ways of living are represented there. Some of the stories that are telling tangos are represented in those movies. And it was kind of like a little bit of a historic, not very academic, but some sort of like casual historic research that it was very enriching for us too. So
yeah, because visual information is important, because when you hear a house with a fence, and the ivy and the balcony, what kind of house do you imagine? Like Romeo and Juliet kind of thing, or like house like this, like individual house with a white picketed fence? And neither of those are what we are talking about in Argentina, So like I went great length, like checking with the Argentinians also. It's like, hey, is this the photo? Like, is this the thing? Like also looking back in those times, because Buenos Aires today doesn't look like Buenos Aires when those songs are written. The living conditions were different, how the city developed is different. So, I was checking on that, because of course we can interpret it in any ways. That's a way to enjoy songs, but I also wanted to know, like, what really was the intention of the author, or when they were playing, So that's what I really enjoyed, because sometimes you can find a photo. So what I also was looking for was the painters from Argentina from that time. Sometimes the power of painting is also really powerful compared with photo, which depicts the reality, but sometimes also the painters, some of them I printed here, they also paint the feelings, and some details also show, how the life was, and you find a lot of things in the picture. Sometimes it's just seeing a picture is quite as powerful as reading a whole book.
Yes. Well, it's very interesting how you just put all these things together, and then it's almost like you create a painting yourself by taking all these elements and making it into a very interesting whole. So maybe just a question about the translation process itself. Like you said that you yourself also had to translate, because there were no translations. You had to work on things yourself, and you probably did that together, I suppose. Well, I'm not entirely sure what the each of your individual roles were, but can you maybe tell us something about how this translation went, and what? Well, you already said something you struggled with, like for example Lunfardo, but maybe there's some other things you can tell us about.
Some songs were already translated, and if we could find a good translation or a translation that we liked, we would take that one and credit that one. But for most other songs, especially dancing songs, there was no translation, so we had to do them ourselves. And sometimes I would translate the song myself, and then Ayano would agree, or sometimes Ayano would try to translate it like a
draft,
and I would polish it a little bit. One of the challenges, I would say, and it's still something that can be improved actually, is that we had to do a lot of translations very fast. So I wouldn't consider our translations definitive, because they need a lot of revision, and they could be definitely improved. Also, another challenge, because English is not our mother language, so there's probably better words and better ways of using the language in English that could portray better the nuances of what does it mean in Spanish. Sometimes it's really tricky to, when you don't know the language so well, because it's not your native language, to really find the exact, connotation. So our goal basically was translate enough so people can understand what they're talking about, but not to the point that it's going to be like a literal, like an artistic translation that could be, that could not be improved. It definitely can come somebody with a better knowledge of English and polish it to perfect it a little better. You know what I'm saying? So we did, I think, a really good job on trying to translate a lot of songs, but we could have spent way more time on each of the songs trying to make it definitely better, especially if you are looking at them from a literary point of view,
Like, for example, Derek Del Pilar, who has the website called Poesia del Gotham, he has great amount of lyrics too, who's a great friend of ours. He's also English major, like literature major.
Yeah, that helps. Yeah.
He studied poetry, and he also double majored in Latin American studies. So that's what it makes him perfect in a way to do this job, because he understands the background of it and understands Spanish, and then he's English native and he understands all the literature part of English. Like for us, finding the English was sometimes difficult because, it's like, okay, which word is better? So we would ask our friends.
Like, for example,
which sounds better to you in English?
For example, we don't really know English slang. So sometimes to make a parallel between Spanish words in slang or like lunfardo and trying to find a parallel into English that would give the connotation that this is a slang word, it was very difficult for us because we don't speak those words in English. It's not part of our culture. So we had to sometimes ask friends or trying to find out a way that at least translates or transmits the meaning without really being the exact perfect word. So anyway, that's why I said that it was a very entertaining project, because all those details kept us really intrigued and busy about it.
Interesting thing is all the songs that we listen to, for us, it's the same. We say, golden age. It's some recording that came between 35 to 55, more or less. Many songs, there are songs that are written in the 40s and in the 50s. And then there are songs that are written in the 20s or even earlier, right? And when we dance to, we cannot tell which one is which. But when you look at the lyrics, it's quite clear. The songs that were written in the 40s is so easy to translate. So easy to translate. It's quite straightforward, most of it. Love songs, and from 43 to 49, Lunfardo was banned. So like during those time, it's like translation is done like this. There's no double meaning, it's very simple. Now, the songs from before, like a lot of the rich stories that we're talking about are the songs that are written in the 20s. People don't know. It's actually a remake. That what we are dancing to is the remake. Original sounded quite different. The lyrics is the same, the melody is the same, but man, the world that those songs talk about is so rich, so interesting. But sometimes some words doesn't make sense as it is unless you understand the background of it. And I bet most Argentinians also don't know those meanings. They have to either have read something, they must have to be interested in it to research, to understand what those things mean.
Yeah.
There are a lot of songs like that.
Kind of makes me laugh because I heard someone like who has a foreigner as well, who has a teacher in Argentina online, and whenever he comes up with these lunfardo words, she denies that it is actual Spanish. So she's very like strict about, well, that's not real Argentinian Spanish, but it's their own history, but they don't know it. So it's quite a challenge. I mean, that's always the most difficult, like you say, the most difficult things to translate. It can be very, very tough, and it has a lot of depth. I think you can just keep learning about that forever. So many information coming at me that I forget my follow-up question sometimes. Did you? Was this mostly directed at your own, like your official students, or was it more like a broader audience in mind?
Well, because it was through Zoom, it actually reached a wider audience that we probably intended. Because with it was online, so suddenly we had somebody from connecting from Taiwan or from the East Coast. We had some people in Canada. It was quite interesting to see how it developed a core of people who was following the project. Not a big group, but very, very, very dedicated and very loyal. And it actually was quite varied. It was not only our students actually, and it was never intended just for our students.
But also we teach locally. But we also travel a lot. We give workshop, DJ, we have friends all over the world. And so it's in a way like connecting with those friends that otherwise we can't see because we couldn't travel at that time. But like, it's nice to see their face every week. And then, so we would listen. I stopped recording after I stopped talking, but then we would stay on and chat and how we felt about that. Or, that was also a really nice way of connecting with people. There were people from different places. Yeah. And of course, I put everything online for free, like all the contents, because obviously I wanted people to access and see, and I already did this work. So anybody can go dive in if anybody's interested. I would like also many other teachers to encourage their students to spend time on this and use this as a teaching material if they want. I mean, I would love that if that happened.
Yes.
Also, very interestingly, some other people who are regulars that were really committed, I thought this was more good for beginners, actually, who are new, who doesn't know the music well. But no, on the contrary, a lot of people who have been teaching and dancing for like more than 20 years, they were really fascinated because they know the music so well, but they hadn't, got into this side of the story part, right? And they were on all the time, and their presence also was an encouragement for me because it's not like they know nothing. Like, of course they know a lot, but they wanted to know more.
Yeah. And someone needs to be the interpreter,
yeah,
between the two cultures.
No, it's interesting how dancers in general completely ignore the poetry side of tango. Sometimes we hear or we read that tango is the music, the dance, and the poetry. And for dancers, normally we only care about the music. And tangueros who don't dance, they know a lot about they know about the poets, they know about the lyrics, and they care about that. So it's interesting to sort of like connect the three corners of the triangle finally, because otherwise it's always like the people who don't dance, they think that there's no more dancing anymore. Like some people in Buenos Aires, they don't know about the milongas or the circuit down there. And the dancers, in most cases, don't care about the poets. So it's interesting to close the circle in a way.
Yes. So one of the things I get from this is that you actually had a great time surviving the pandemic with this project, not only because you kind of kept yourself busy with all these things that can be done at home, but also because you found a new way of connecting with the people not just your students, but a lot of people, and you gave them like a whole experience. It wasn't just chatting about how you're doing, but you actually gave people some kind of product. And I've been doing very similar things before, not necessarily during the pandemic, because I've been a bit disconnected from tango for a few years. But before, I was also conscious of this importance of trying to educate people about these things. I've always been interested in the lyrics, but a lot of people don't really seem to notice. And I really applaud any intent to reach a broader audience with this kind of stuff. And that's also all these people always have done, like Derek and Michael Krugman and Michael Lavoca. Like it's there's so much to be gained for everyone. And it was very interesting to talk to you about this, and maybe we have some more time for like some further details about it, but I would also like to use the rest of our conversation to get you a bit, to get to know you a bit better as dancers, as people. So I think that the screen just got a little stuck. Are you still with me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, yes, I am.
It was a little
Sorry.
bit. It was a little bit.
Yeah. I think you came back. Yeah.
Yes. So did you catch any of what I said? Like, I know from teaching online that sometimes, like, oh, you're back now.
Oh, there
Yes.
you go.
That's funny.
Yeah, you know, we were hearing a lot of noise on your side. Maybe you were touching some cables or something.
Okay. Well, I'll try to be more careful with that. Let's rearrange this cable a bit. But did you hear like what I said about
that you wanted to move on and talk about
us more?
Talk about us, but I don't know exactly what the question was.
Well, I don't think I was able to get to that point. Yeah, a bit like what's your personal background? How did you meet? How did you get into tango? A bit, you know, there will be more topics later, but let's start with that.
Okay, I'll make sure we can go here for a long time. I'll make it short. I'm from Spain originally. I started dancing tango in 1997 in Madrid with some Argentinians who were teaching there locally. And I moved to the States in 2000, where I was very happy to see that there was a thriving tango scene also in San Francisco here. And my background is in education. I was a teacher before I moved on to full-time tango, but kind of like teaching was always my passion in a way. And in 2004, you moved to the States, 2004, 2005. And we met when she started dancing tango around that time, but we didn't get together really until 2010. 2010, we got together and we married a few years later, and we've been together since then. But as I said, I was a teacher before. I've been a full-time from tango for more than 15 years at this already.
And how did you get into tango in 97?
I got into tango because I already started dancing other social dances like salsa and some social ballroom and things like that.
Because you were always interested in dancing.
I was always interested in dancing, yeah. And tango had always this sort of like allure of like some sort of exotic thing, right? And somehow you realize it's a little different and more challenging than regular other social dances. And, you know, at some point I decided to go for it, and I researched who was teaching in Madrid at the time. And with my girlfriend at the time, we started dancing together.
And you teach the other dances.
And the problem with tango is that it's a hole with no bottom. You know, once you fall into it, you know how it is. It's like you never come back of that hole. So I'm still falling down. So basically, that's kind of like the short side of the story. Ayano has a little different story because she came from finance.
So I was born in Tokyo, Japan, and I moved to the state in 2004 because I got a job offer. I worked in investment research. I was a research analyst. And as you can see, that skill actually worked great in Tango Poetry Project. So what I used to do was to research things that I didn't know. I talked to the expert and draw the conclusion, make a presentation to our portfolio manager so they can make an investment decision. And so that was my job. And it turns out that and tango actually can go together. So I really enjoy doing research, learning things. So that was always my part. But then I moved here. Until then, I was always really working hard, very serious. And then, you know, but here in California, people go home at 6 p.m. I couldn't believe it. I used to work until 2 a.m. I show up at work at 7 a.m. I used to work until 2 a.m. You know, that was my life in Tokyo. And then like I come here and people go home. Like you have to find life after work, which was not part of my life back then. And so like 1 year passed and I had nothing, no friends, because when you move somewhere new without going to school, without hobby, it's hard to meet people. And then somebody for some reason took me to a milonga. I didn't know what that was, but anyhow, I saw like Cinderella's ballroom, you know, like everybody was in costume. It was Halloween night, okay, Halloween milonga. Everybody's in costume and they were dancing, like people are dancing. It's 21st century, people are dancing like for joy. I didn't know that world existed. I actually didn't even know that tango is danced. I only knew piazzolla. I didn't know that there was a dance, actually, until I saw milonga. And I'm like, oh, wow, I can dress up and go to dance. Like, this is really nice. And I said, well, I want to dance this. And then the guy goes like, oh, you can sign up right there. And the class starts next week. Like, okay. So I'm in, so I signed up and I never stopped. And I made all my friends, every single one of friends that I made since I came here, all dance tango. And then now I have friends all over the world too. So, you know, and then I have found my husband.
You got the whole package.
So this,
yeah, the whole package.
Yeah,
exactly.
And the finance job went away in
a long time ago. The problem with tango, I tell all the students, whenever somebody comes to us to learn tango, I always tell them, it's like, okay, that's great. You want to start tango, that's wonderful, but I need to tell you straight, so you wouldn't be able to say later, nobody warned me. I have to tell you that tango will change your life. Could be for the better, it could be for the worse, but it definitely will change your life if you get hooked into tango. And that is definitely a reality for us, has been, and for many people that we know. I mean, we've seen people getting together, people getting divorced, people changing jobs, people quitting their lives, people, I mean, it's whatever, I don't know, all kinds of things happen with tango, but it's definitely something that if you get hooked, it changes completely your life. And for us has been for the better, and has been like definitely a very transcendent decision in a way, or change. But yeah, it's the whole package. It's the whole package. It's like it turns into a way of living. It turns into a lifestyle in a way. We are not Argentinians. We didn't grow up with that, but somehow once we got to connect with tango, it really became part of us, and we really related with it at a very deep and profound level.
Yeah, it's very interesting because many people are saying during the pandemic, we would talk with our friends, and they're like, oh, do you miss it? Like, are you guys dancing? Do you miss tango? And I'm like, no, we don't miss tango because it's already inside us. Like, we live with tango. Okay, we are not dancing that much, no? Like maybe little steps in the kitchen, little space, but we're not really dancing or rehearsing or anything like that. But no, we're not, like, no time to miss, because we listen to tango all the time. We're talking about things, we're surrounded by things with tango, it's always in our mind. So no, we didn't miss it, actually. It was always with us.
We didn't miss it because it never went away. That's kind of like the point. It's like a lot of people see tango as an entertainment that they do, that suddenly during the pandemic they can't do anymore. But for us, tango never left. If you are not watching a tango movie, you are listening to a vinyl, or you are reading a book. I'm reading a book right now that just came out recently, and I'm reading a book on tango right now. It's like, for us, it's part of our life one way or another, whether we teach or whether we travel or not. It's part of our life constantly.
Yes, it's funny that you mentioned the changes that it seems to provoke in everyone's lives. What I've also actually said myself is that it's also often the way around, and I see that a bit in Ayano's story. Like, there might be something missing, and then you find this, and then it suddenly, like, it changes your life. So it happens like the other way around. That for some people, just due to some kind of crisis, for like you mentioned, like divorces or something, like all kinds of bad things can happen in someone's life. And this is really a typical thing that seems to attract those people in one way or another. Not everyone is like that, but I feel like there's some kind of connection between tango and this searching for a new identity. Or it's very interesting what you said about what a lot of people suffer with being a workaholic, so to say, and suddenly they are confronted with a whole different world. And yes, it's a very interesting story.
What happened to me in 2012 is I broke my knee 1 year into a relation.
No?
Yeah, 11. Oh, 11. Yeah,
2011.
2011. So what happened to us, like we started dating, and at the time, you know, many people experienced this. He was already a known teacher. He was already touring US and performing in all festivals and stuff. And I was a beginner in a way, right? Because I was dancing only 5 years, 6 years. But, you know, in terms of dance level, it was not par.
No.
But we got together romantically. He had different partners. He was working on his own, and I was just like, you know, tagging along, you know, as a girlfriend. And I had a lot of pressure personally as a dancer because we were not on the same level, and I feel like I had to get better. And then a year into the relationship, we went skiing trip and I broke my knee, and I was devastated because now, like, I feel like I was catching up. I was starting to understand his dance, and I'm like, I can't dance. It was so shocking to me. In addition to the recovery process was quite hard for me. But then he would go like DJ, right? Like he would go teach, and so we would go to milongas together, and I can dance, and I'm there in the beginning, before the milonga starts until the milonga ends, the whole time. And then I'm like, okay, fine. So I will sit and talk to people. You know, if you can dance, going to milonga and sitting is a very lonely experience because people will just engage with you in a conversation, and then Darienzo comes and they will fly away, like you're abandoned there and you're waiting there. And then they come back again, they were dancing, talking again. It's like, and Troilo comes, they're all gone, you know, like that.
So
and then realize the best place to sit. No. On the contrary,
we don't go to milongas where they play bad music.
On the contrary, I realized the best place to sit for an injured person who cannot dance is right next to the DJ, because DJs don't go away. So I started sitting next to the DJ. Sometimes it's him, sometimes it's other friend of ours or whoever is DJing, and I will go and it's like, hey, what is this music? Oh, this is nice. Oh, and it's like, oh, what are you doing? Oh, I'm trying to decide between this tanda and this tanda. And I'm like, oh, really? Interesting. I'm like, oh, what about this one? It's like, oh, that's a good idea. Or like, oh, no, that wouldn't work because this and this and this. You know, and so I started, like, the more I knew, like, had more questions. So I was like talking to them, and it's like, oh, I like this one. Oh, I don't like this one. And, oh, this one. Oh, people are not dancing. Why is that? It's like, oh, this is maybe too fast, or, you know, like all the process started happening. So I couldn't dance at all for 6 months. So 6 months I had like, when we even went to festivals and I couldn't dance. So I learned a lot from many different people, and they were really all generous enough. And so I started like learning more about music, and also from DJ's point of view. And that's how I got really more into the music, because I broke my knee.
Well, you're a person who sees opportunities in bad things. That's
I mean, what can you do? Just sit there and be bored and be sad? I mean, yeah, like I can do that for like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in a way I had my own pandemic before.
Yeah.
Well, that's very interesting how you in a way caught up with your partner, because it's probably a bit awkward if you have this, like you said, if you have this level difference, especially if your partner is actually a teacher and travels for that. I mean, there are a lot of tango couples, romantic couples, so to say, but you're also teachers. So, well, you weren't a teacher back then, but still the point, the difference in level was quite big, but you found a way around it. And so when did you start teaching, or how did you start teaching yourself, Ayano?
So this is another thing. So while we were not traveling, he would go out to teach. Like, that was also another problem for me, because I had a job. When I'm working, he's not working. When I'm off work in the evening, he's working.
Sorry, what
when I'm off work in the week, in financial investment.
Oh, you were still okay.
You know, in investment. Yeah, I was still working when I broke my knee. And so, 9 to 5 I'm working, and then in the evening he's working, he's teaching, and in the weekend he's teaching and working. So I started accompanying him when he's teaching with somebody else. But then also when I broke my knee, so I couldn't do anything. So I would help at the door, meeting people. And then during the class, I was taking notes. I don't know, because I was bored, I think. And then I noticed, like, I really, because he's an educator, no, he studied how to teach. He understands what works and what not. And I realized that he's very careful with his words. And I was like, oh, you know what? I want to learn about that. Like, he would say certain things in a certain way. He wouldn't say certain things in a certain way. He would never mention certain things, you know, because you can teach in a very different way. Okay, do this, don't do that. You know, there are many different ways to, like, or like, you know, think about it, but don't do it. You know, like, there are many, many different ways to teach. And there are many methods, which I didn't know at the time, because I didn't study education. I didn't study the learning process, but I learned from him how to teach, because I took notes. I mean, I'm telling you, like, I have like tens of dozens of notes, like literally writing what he was saying, what he was teaching, and what process he was teaching. You know, like, he would build up from the exercises, and then he would go into, like, explain some details or whatnot, you know? So I was doing that for a while, like few years. I was his stagiaire for few years without the intention that I would teach, because I was just there doing nothing, and I cannot just do nothing. And then, you know, when sometimes he would not have a partner or something. And I already knew what he was going to say, because I already studied it. Like, I attended every single one of his class for a few years, and I wrote down everything. So I know what he would say, how he would say it, you know. So that's when I started, like, helping his class.
But she's also missing, like, one of the important pieces is that what she says, she had a job and I had a job, and sometimes our timings were not compatible. So at some point, she takes the drastic decision to quit her job.
No.
Wait. We wanted to spend more time together.
No, wait. I said, either you stop traveling and I keep my job, or I quit my job. I gave him the option. And you didn't stop traveling. So I quit my job. Ta-da.
Anyway, the point is that she quit her full-time job, and then it made more sense that we could partner them, because now our timings were compatible. So that's how we started, like, you know, teaching locally, and then, you know, building up from there also. Because, you know, before I was working with somebody from New York, working with different people around. So it was sometimes it was like a whole logistics issue, you know, working with different partners. And, you know, once she doesn't have a separate parallel agenda, it makes more sense that we really combine our lives together in all senses.
Yeah, you know, the tipping point came, I remember, because when you have a job, especially in the States, not in Europe, I mean, we have 2 weeks vacation a year, okay? And he would go, you know, traveling in the cruise and going to festivals. And he was like, okay, so I'm from August, I'm going to be in Buenos Aires for 2 months, like 2 months. And at the time, I only had like 4 days of vacation left in that year, in August. So then my choice was either let him go to Buenos Aires alone, or I can go fly so I can stay 2 days, because, you know, it takes 16 hours from here to go to Buenos Aires. I can stay 2 days with him in Buenos Aires and come back and do my work. And you know what? I'm like, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm quitting my job. So I quit my job and I flew to Buenos Aires.
Buenos Aires was a bigger magnet than the financial world. Let's put it that way.
Yes. Well, I'm glad it was that way, because you got a way better lifestyle, and I mean, that's what people like us think anyway. But you know, you decided to chase your dream, and that's that's great.
I think it was more like the dream was chasing us. And we couldn't escape.
Yeah, in a sense, there's no way out.
Yeah, that's what I said before. We're still falling down the hole.
Yes. Yes. So many questions, so little time. Yeah, maybe like one of the questions I wanted to ask you is, what do you like about tango and about dancing tango yourself? And I think you've already made it obvious what you like about tango. Otherwise, you wouldn't be this far into the hole. But yeah, maybe these two questions I have, that they have an overlap. Like, what do you like about dancing tango yourself? And the other one is, what does teaching tango mean to you? Could you maybe like both give us a bit of an insight in these questions? Like, there's the teaching part, but I suppose there's also the dancing part, and like what does it mean to you?
Okay, so the teaching, I'm going to start with the teaching part, because as I said, I was a teacher before I danced tango. So I had already this sort of like teaching motivation in me. No, I was a teacher because I liked that. I wanted to teach. And in a way, for me, teaching tango came up as I was getting filled with all these tango experiences inside me that were making me happy. It was bringing so much joy to my life that at some point that kind of like overflowed, and teaching was a way of sharing that. I wanted to make other people participant of that joy that I was finding with tango. So it was kind of like, the glass got full and it just overflowed. And that's kind of like I see my teaching in a way. It's not that I teach because I have to, or not even because I want to. I teach because it comes out of me. It's like if people ask me things, I will give them. I will give them what I know, what I have. And if that helps them the way it helped me to be happier, to find joy, I find myself satisfied. It's a way of kind of like almost like sharing what you have inside in a way. And why do I dance tango? I don't know. I cannot answer that question, honestly. I got into tango and I don't know why I do it, but it brings me joy. I don't know. I don't know why. It's
like the satisfaction is endless.
Yeah, but it's not that. I mean, the way I feel about tango is not that I do tango. I practice tango as if I was practicing, taekwondo or ceramics. I don't see it as an activity that I do. I feel it as something that I have inside. And one of the expressions of that, or one of the ways that thing gets out there, is by going out and dancing, but also sometimes it's by listening to music or by reading a book, as I said. Or, you know what I mean? Is that it's not that I see tango as an activity to practice. I don't know how to put this in words. It's, I dance tango because I feel tango inside, because I have it inside.
It's your life, yeah.
It's my life. So it's like when I go to a party, it's not going to be a techno party or a rock and roll party. It's going to be a tango party because my friends are tango people. I go to milongas. That's where I find joy. That's where I like to go and talk to others. I don't go to a regular bar to drink and get drunk and listen to loud music. I go to a place that is playing this really nice music that I enjoy, that it happens to have people dancing around. That is called a milonga. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. It's part of my life. It's part of my lifestyle. And I didn't, in a way, I didn't even choose it because it was never intended that way. It's something that organically evolved into that. As I said, I had another profession before and I was never intending to be a tango teacher, but just life takes you there somehow. And if you ask me why, I don't really have an answer for that, because it's deeper than that. It's almost asking of, why do you have the life you have, or why, why your destiny? I don't know. You know what I mean?
It's clear. It's quite clear.
We'll have to ask some other, some God up there why. I can't answer that question really.
But how about you?
In my case, it's quite different.
Okay.
Yeah. In my case, it's quite different because I've always wanted to dance, but I couldn't dance. I'm not very like a sports person or anything like that. I wanted to do ballet. My mother wouldn't let me. I wanted to do hip hop. I was not very good. I tried ballroom. It was all old people. I didn't belong there. I tried salsa. It was too fast. I couldn't memorize the moves. I'm like, oh. And then when somebody took me to this tango thing, and I realized, oh, I don't have to memorize steps because, they teach you to follow. I don't have to memorize steps. And it's actually slow. I'm not out of breath. I was working in a desk. I'm not like athletic. So, oh, this is like a really accessible dance. And I think it's also one of the reasons why tango is so awesome that anybody can dance. I danced with 96-year-old man in Buenos Aires. If he can dance, anybody can dance, And that's what I love. And that's why I also really enjoy teaching too, because I know this dance is accessible to anyone. Like, if the only thing they need is that they want to dance. That's it. That's the only thing. But if you don't want it, no matter how talented you are, you will never get good at it. You never get into it, That's the only thing. Like, you need to want it. And like you said, many people get into tango in a crisis, no? So in a way, I realized that when we meet so many people through tango classes, milonga, practica, it's not just about teaching a dance. It's really getting to know people, because there are a lot of emotional part also that is part of this whole tango experience. I realized many people come looking for a place for healing, sometimes for self-expression. They need to, like, we have had people who we were teaching in a class, like we were embracing them, they burst into tears because, something broke, like the walls that they were holding or something. It had happened to me, so more than teaching, for me, it's like really touching people, like touching people's lives and sharing that. And that, which is what I'm still, I'm getting the benefit of that too, myself, when I go out dancing. I'm from Japan. I never hug my parents. My parents never hug me. That's very weird. Yeah, we don't talk about emotions. That's my background, which is the opposite of like how Argentinians are. They talk about feelings. They see, psychologists all the time. They hug and touch. It's a very different culture where I come from. First, when people wanted to embrace me, I'm like, no, I dance like this because, like, that's too close. But when I went to Buenos Aires, they didn't give me a choice. Man came, I went to Porteño Bailarín, I remember, and he asked me to dance, and I said yes, and then they went like, wow, like I have no choice. I was like, oh my God, this is too much. But then, like, when I stopped fighting, when I stopped freaking out, oh my God, the joy and the acceptance that I felt. I never had that in my life. I never had that. And I'm still, in a way, like, I'm still transmitting that, sharing with people, that's okay. It's okay to make yourself vulnerable, to open yourself up and let other people embrace you and give that back. No, I think that's what we do dancing. And it's so meaningful. And I think it never gets old. That part of tango, like, never gets old, and it's totally universal anywhere in the world, no matter the age, no matter where you come from, no matter what your occupation or training is, it doesn't matter. I think it touches anyone. And it's really, really amazing that.
Very true.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's pretty much the essence of it. Yeah.
And that's why, tango is so appealing all over.
And
because it transcends time, it transcends places. Now it has become like a world phenomenon. It's it's endless.
Yeah, and it's like I've recently realized more and more that it's in a way a very introverted dance, but it actually, on the other hand, enables you to connect with people, because you're like forced to look inside, and it's not, you know, I'm a, you know, some people really have fun, like less complicated fun dancing salsa, but this is more you know, it's more mature. It's probably also why we tend to see older people gravitating towards like in their 40s maybe, or late 30s, starting to gravitate towards this thing when they've already like experienced a bunch of things. And yeah, it's you know, I could talk to anyone about this topic. Well, you are one of the most fanatical people I've met in a way. You're like tango. But that's it's not unique, but it's still quite it's quite yeah, quite impressive. But I think for anyone, this is anyone I could talk to has some kind of story like this, and that's very very interesting that I get a chance to actually discover these things as well, because this is not a typical thing you find on someone's, you know, Facebook profile, even though people tend to share a lot. But to really get like this more like story with the whole context, yeah, I really like that. And it's the first time I've actually spoken with people I wasn't familiar with. So it's indeed very universal. Like you're telling a story that I can recognize, even though it's your own story and it's unique in its own way, and still there's this universal quality to it. So that's amazing. So can I maybe, like, we've just passed 1 hour, but I would like to ask you one more question.
Sure.
Because you know, I know a lot of people who are in the European tango scene, and we have a lot of things like Encuentro, Milonguero, and marathons and all these. But I'm getting the feeling that you are quite passionate about Buenos Aires, and I'm too, even though I live in Europe, and I could, you know, I don't really need to go to Buenos Aires like some people used to in the past. Like there was no alternative in a way, but now they have many more options. But still, I feel like I gravitate more towards the source. And because you know so much about tango, I would like to know you, like, what does Buenos Aires like mean to you? What does going there mean to you? As a final question, I would like to hear something about that, if you can.
So, I mean, obviously, some people can dance tango anywhere in the world, and they don't need, or they don't want to go to Buenos Aires, because you can find tango, you know, in any small city, basically everywhere right now. You know, anywhere you point in the map, you're gonna find some class or some milonga or something. But Buenos Aires, for us, offers a couple of things that you don't find anywhere else in the world. For one, you still have in Buenos Aires people who have lived through the golden age, or part of that time in the 40s and 50s. It's very rare to find those people anywhere else in the world. In Europe, there's people who've been dancing 30 years, but it's a different time. It's a different period, definitely. So this opportunity to go to Buenos Aires and be able to experience the people who were actually living and participating in that time back then, men and women, is unique. It's something that you can't find anywhere else, and you won't be able to find it in a few years, because they're all dying right now. There are very few left, men and women, real milongueros, if you want to call them like that. They are all disappearing. This year during the pandemic, so many of them also passed away. It's very sad. And some of them are already 80, many, or past 90. So that means that in 5 years, there's not going to be anybody left. There will be the next generation. So that's one thing that you can only find in Buenos Aires right now. And also the point is that some of these older people are actually good dancers. Sometimes it's difficult to find older people who are good dancers anywhere else, because most of them learn when they were, in Europe or in America, they learn to dance when they are already adults. These people learn when they were teenagers, so the dances in their bodies, they are still agile and competent. So that's one thing that is very unique down in Buenos Aires. The other thing that is very unique in Buenos Aires is that tango is not just in the milongas, it's in the culture, it's in the city. if you go to Berlin, you have milongas, but if you don't go to the milongas, you don't see tango anywhere in Berlin or in Paris or in Rome. You know what I mean? Those are European cities with a different character. But in Buenos Aires, even if you don't go to milongas, you find tango around. It's like you feel it around. You know what I'm saying? You hear the music in stores. The taxi guys maybe playing music. You see the murals in the city. There's so many things that are like tango in the ambient. You know what I'm saying? So that is very enjoyable itself. That is not just, you don't go to Buenos Aires just to dance. You go to Buenos Aires to immerse yourself in the whole ambience that is hard to find somewhere else. And if you just want to talk about the dancing itself, it's also different. When you go to an encuentro, when you go to a marathon in the US, in Europe, in Asia, you can find really good dancers, no doubt about that. You can find a lot of really good dancers, sometimes a lot of great music, but even the ambience is different than the milongas in Buenos Aires.
Like the energy.
The energy is different, and it's an experience that is hard to find outside of Buenos Aires. You might like it, you might not like it. You might disagree on whether it's worth doing it or not, or, what am I going to invest all the money to go down there? And maybe I can just go to a few events here in the summer every weekend. That's a discussion that we can have if you want to get into that. But there's no doubt that there is something in Buenos Aires that is different than anywhere else in the world. And that also is changing very quickly. It's changing dramatically fast. So if you want to get a glimpse of that, you better do it soon. And for us, it's something that is invaluable. Every time we go to Buenos Aires, we feel motivated, we feel enriched, re-energized. We come back with much more hunger for more tango. You know what I mean? It's almost like we recharge our batteries in a way. We go to a lot of events in the rest of the world. We go to a lot of festivals and marathons and encuentros.
In Asia, in US, in Europe.
But when we go to Buenos Aires, it's like a different thing. You know what I mean? It's like you have all these options and Buenos Aires is a different one. So if you go to only the other ones, you're missing something. If you only go to Buenos Aires, you will be also missing the other experiences if that's what you like. But there's no doubt that it's different down there. Something is different.
Yeah. We go there like every year for at least a month. So we already know our circuit. Like we have the milongas that we like to go to. We have friends down there. So if you go for just one time for a weekend, or even for a week, maybe the experience might be different. Because for us, we go there for a month to try to be one of them. Try to be, try to live that life that the locals live at the best way we can. When we go there. When we go for a marathon or encuentro in this one weekend, intense weekend where people gather and then like dance as much as you can, sort of like all you can eat. Like it's the experience of going to regular diner, bistro, and eat your regular food with the owner that you always talk to versus going to all you can eat buffet in 1 hour and try to eat as much stuff as you can. That's a very different. Food is food, but your experience is very, very, very different. Your mindset is also different. Yeah. We also dance to the same music, but the experience is quite different. I think that's what he was trying to get to. And we believe that anybody can dance tango. You don't have to be Argentinian to dance tango well. That we totally believe that. I mean, we are not Argentinian to begin with, but there is something we cannot also deny that there is something about Argentinians. And then I'm not talking about the pros. When we go to the milonga, even here, some stranger walk in and you can tell that they're Argentinians. And we go to milongas, and obviously, we try to go to milongas where there are not that many tourists because we want to be immersing self in that environment. So normally we are strangers, into their own space where mostly they're locals. And even the worst dancers in the room, there is something that I can learn from them. There is something unique that I really appreciate. because I'm a woman and I try not to lead when I go to these milongas. I want to respect how they behave. So I dance with men. And the men, even the worst dancers, okay, because not all of them are good dancers, obviously, but like they're so grounded, you know, the way that you feel the earth, like they're like their feet on the ground, they're the weight, how grounded they are without trying to, just that's how they are. It's not a dance technique. And the way they embrace me, they go like, boom. Their movement might be limited, you know, they might not be able to do these elaborate steps, but there's something in that is like, I really appreciate. And I learn, I'm like, wow, like, this is amazing. And it's kind of hard to teach and hard to learn. Like when I go to Buenos Aires and come back here or Europe or Asia, people are so light. They're like floating, you know, and then they can do all kinds of things and they're musical, whatever. Like, oh, they're like, oh, I miss that groundedness. I say that a lot. Or like this lack of doubt, like doubtlessly they embrace you. Like there is no excuse. There is no, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, oh, I don't want to hurt you. No, none of that. None of that. They're like, he asked me to dance. And I say, yes. And we dance. We come to the embrace. He go, boom. You know, there's nothing intrusive about that. It's more like commitment, you know, in a way. Like, I love that. And I miss that. Of course, there are people who does that too, but I also feel that that's a part that is almost universally. You can get it from any man in Argentina, from the worst dancer in the room. Those two things, like the groundedness and embrace, like right there, you know. And for me, that's also a very important part of tango, rather than just steps, which I love. I love those too. You know, musicality, I love that too, of course. But there are other parts that I also like, I really, really appreciate, no? Not to mention that I was so lucky, I was so fortunate to be able to dance with those men that he was talking about, the milongueros, who so many of them passed away this year. And I can never dance with them again. But the ones that I danced, you know, you learn so much that it's like the transmission of information and whatever they have gone through by just dancing. Like, especially if you're a woman or a follower, dance with them. If you're a man, if they ever let you feel their dance with them, because that information, you can never get it anywhere else.
It's like Buenos Aires is kind of like a hidden gold mine where the gold is disappearing fast. And sometimes, you know, you need to go there just to dig some of these little gems because they're nowhere else in the world. That's a perfect excuse to go to Buenos Aires. And now, if you don't care about those gems, that's fine. Don't go there. And
in my experience, if you want them, if you're interested, they are all genuinely really generous. Some people, I think, have the feeling that the Argentinians are snobbish or elitist, so they don't care about you because so many people are so used to dancing amongst their friends that go to the same encuentros, same marathons, and so you're accepted. You go there and you dance all night, nonstop. And it's not about that. Of course, they might not dance with you right away because they don't know you. It's not the same experience, no? But when you go there with your humble attitude and wanting to learn and show that, no, that you're interested, they will accept you and they will share with you so much. All the experience that I had so far has been really positive, and I'm really grateful for everything, every bit that they've given me, you know, like dancing with these people, or even like talking to these ladies too, you know, the way, the attitude that they have, and however shitty their life must be, when they're in the dance floor, they're like king in a way that they have pride, they have dignity, and they're this men, and they treat you so right. Like they all treated me like a queen in a way. I feel great dancing with them. And they will shower you with piropos, those compliments, but not in a bad way, not in a vulgar way at all. I love dancing in there, and the way they listen to music. It's so different. So different. Watching people perform, I think some people think that they're deaf. Like they can't listen to music because the way they listen to music is so different. People who lived in 1940s, they listen to music in a different way. You have to understand the way. You have to transcend from ping pong poon. And it's so interesting to me because the first time, of course, I couldn't dance with them because I'm like, what? But then you watch, you learn, you dance with them, and you learn so much. So, am I talking too much? Maybe I'm talking too much. No. You touch a play.
You just touch the wrong key.
Yes. No, I love it when people are talkative. It's just that I maybe to conclude the conversation, I would like to know, is that actually also true for Felipe with the women?
Yeah, I mean, yes.
That's a side you hear less about.
No, I mean, I completely agree with what she has to say in that regard. I've danced, sometimes I've go to milonga. I mean, Buenos Aires has a very varied scene. You have all kinds of different milongas, which is also rare because in general, outside of Buenos Aires, all the milongas tend to be homogenized, that they are very similar in general. But in Buenos Aires, you have like different circuits within the big scene. So, you have milongas with younger people, milongas with older people, milongas with, they dance more or less this way, or milongas with more tourists or less tourists. So it's very diverse. You can find many different kinds of milongas within Buenos Aires. So sometimes, connecting to what she was saying, sometimes we go to milongas with very young people, and sometimes we go to milongas with very old people, and sometimes I dance with women that are very old. Some of them also passed away. And yeah, you find something really unique about the way they dance, the way they understand and the way they connect with the other person while we're dancing. And it's a rare experience. As I said, it's like we're talking about people who learned when they were young, they've been dancing all their lives. And that is very difficult to find outside of Buenos Aires. A woman that is 75 years old or 80 years old today, that has been dancing since she's 15 down in Buenos Aires, is going to have something in their body, something in the way they move, something in the way they know the music that is very different from somebody the same age who learned in Paris only 15 years ago. It's a very different experience. And there is also something, as Ayano was saying, we believe that you don't have to be Argentinian to really get into all this, into this. But there is something cultural that if you didn't grow up with, you have to do your homework to catch up. You know what I'm saying? They have it maybe because they grew up in Buenos Aires. If you haven't grown up in Buenos Aires, you have to do your homework to catch up on that, to get to know the music, to get to know the culture, to breathe all that into your system, because otherwise it will be missing. It's not enough to just intellectually understand the music, to just intellectually understand the structure of the movements, to know who's who, and to have, to have studied Pilates and biomechanics. That's not enough to get all that cultural side of that. And, back to how we started the interview, part of our interest on this Tango Poetry Project was to a little bit with our 2 cents, contribute to that cultural aspect of that, to give that little extra varnish that might help you also to understand the whole picture, because it's definitely not just about the movement and the music. It's about a much bigger, integrated, holistic, if you want, view.
Yes. Yeah, it's indeed like that's what I was thinking. Like we've gotten full circle with the interview in a way, and it's not just the old culture like the lyrics, but it's also the now culture in Buenos Aires. Like how different it is. Like not just the milongueros, but also like everyone who dances here. They're like that. It's just a different world of tango, and it's unique. It doesn't exist anywhere else. Well, thank you for the interview today. And,
we appreciate your interest. We thank you for connecting with us.
Yes, I really
nice
enjoyed
meeting
your story. Yes, yes. Well, I hope to see you at some point, but that's how it goes in tango. Like one day, I'm
Yes.
sure.
It's a very small world after all, so we're
Yes.
gonna cross paths sooner or later.
Yes. Well, thanks a lot, and well, see you next time.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Lucas.
Take care.